Hey, what's up, guys? Sorry about the kind of weird up angle. I normally don't mount my camera or phone in the car, so this is what we're going to get. Regarding the Minuteman training, we're kind of continuing that. We left off earlier this year with that. Training has been intermittent or focused more on the hard shooting skills on the range, and the flat range, right? So with this Minuteman training, we're going to have some goals that we set. And the main idea is, right, to shoot, move, communicate, and putting that together and starting at the most foundational level, right? Because you can really get into the weeds and minutia on any aspect of any of the stuff, but what at its most essential level is going to be the things that we need to know, right? So the training goal is a skill development goal. It's going to encompass a few performance on demand aspects, but really the goal is to set these foundations and introduce them for both Jason and Craig, but also you as the viewer, if it's something that you're just kind of getting into, right? In the event, what we're going to be working on is basic patrol, like a recce, recon patrol, right? You're looking at this as like a buddy pair, singleton, or even a small fire team, 3 guys, 35 guys, right? And the idea is that you don't want to get into contact, but if you do, what can you do? So the goal is really, with this idea of the recce, is you're going to be gathering information, and the enemy, whoever that may be, will never know that you're there, right? So in the concept of patrolling, where you're going from one place to another, and using all like the types of tactics and strategies within that, we'll refer to that as like the movement, the contact, right? You're moving to the contact. You can go into like Army, Marine, big mill documentation and really get into the weeds about what that means and the minutia of it. But again, we're simplifying this into like a very base level, right? We're going to be doing individual and team fire maneuver. What does that mean? These are the skill sets that you need to have on demand. It's a blend of your hard skills, right? Your hard skills, movement, and communication. That is what you call the fire maneuver, right? So I'll look at it kind of like visualizing a Venn diagram. And you have these kind of main concepts: shoot, move, communicate. Shoot, right? It's the hard skill of being able to shoot fast and accurate, right? At as much range as you possibly can. The effective range of your firearm, whether you're a yard away out to 500 yards. I would say for your average person, you should be basically very capable out to 300 yards, and then try to push out to maybe 500 or 600 yards where you can make hits if given the opportunity. But just your average guy with like a patrol style rifle, a carbine, maybe like a red dot, up to 300, no problem. Throwing a magnifier or using LPVO, you can push it up to 500 or 600. So the hard shooting skills, right? This is flat range work, where you spend time with the up drills, the reloads, the malfunctions, making like micro courses to try to get the heart rate up or challenge yourself, right? There's a difference between doing a shooting course or drill that is going to give you a failure point versus something that's going to build skills. So kind of understanding the difference between that. The movement part of that is understanding what it takes to move fast and aggressively, right? A lot of us think we might be moving fast and aggressively, and it looks like we're prancing across the range, right? So you build that at the gym or an athletic field. Again, it's like a hard skill in the sense that you're working on your physical fitness and working on things like do sprints, shuttle runs, anything that's going to give you an idea of what your explosiveness is like, how to move the best, and build that physical fitness and that cardio, right? Where those two overlap, the movement and the shooting is basically being able to shoot and also move around without getting too fatigued. You're going to get fatigued and winded, but if you can maximize the time before you get gassed out and you can't really be effective, that's the end goal. So those are kind of where those two Venn diagrams, the two circles of a Venn diagram overlap there. You have communication. Communication is kind of in itself a large topic, right? At the most base level, it's like you making eye contact and verbalizing with your teammates, up to using hand signals, radios. And then radios, you can go into like a wide space of radios, networked radios, SATCOM, like networks and all that kind of shit. You can really get into the minutia, your frequencies, your radio types. But for the purpose of the kind of training I'm talking about, it's more about doing it in regards to being able to effectively communicate to a buddy or a small fire team, and really nothing more. And as far as you want to complicate that, it's up to you, your resources, and your skill sets, right? And so that's kind of like the third piece of that Venn diagram. And then I think somewhere where shooting and communication comes together, that's being able to apply the hard skill of shooting, but also being able to watch your buddy and let them know what you're doing, or they let you know what they're doing, or vice versa, having that synergy between each other while incorporating the shooting. You don't want to be thinking about running safeties and trigger manipulation and how to grip the rifle and how to use the sights when you're trying to do all this movement and communicating. That needs to become background. So that's where we practice the stuff, these hard skills, like with the radios. The communication aspect is more getting to know your training buddies and like kind of getting a feel of how they're going to respond, and that takes time. Unless you know each other like outside of training, but even during training, people respond differently under stress and fatigue, so you've got to learn that too. And then somewhere in there is like the gear component, right? The gear that you wear should be specific to the objective and allow you to do all those things unencumbered, right? You shouldn't need to change the way you shoot. You shouldn't need to change the way you run or move, other than like maybe accommodating for extra weight or bulk, right? And your communication should still be easy if you're using like radios or whatnot. You don't want to be encumbered by equipment. So equipment has to be based and designed around these three facets, and then how much of things or what things exactly are based on what the mission goal is, right? If you're going to do an objective that you really have no potential threat, you're really just going to be observing, you're probably going to spend more time and weight on batteries for cameras, for recording equipment, for communication, and very minimal like ammo or whatever, and have more like water per se, so you can be out there longer. If you know you're going to roll up in a vehicle and attack a specific location, and you're going to fight for maybe a couple hours at most, or you're just going to like get into it, like you probably be biased more on like ammunition and water and a little bit of food, and then not have any like reconnaissance equipment or whatever. So your mission set dictates what things you're going to need to carry with you. I talked about this in my other video, like kind of what the purpose of like the Minuteman dirty civilian training is, right? Because we're kind of our own protectors, right? If you're in the big army, big military, big marine, whatever, like that's its own organization. But as far as like who's going to protect you, your home, your neighborhood, right? That's up to you as Joe Schmuckatelli civilian, right? To put in the time and effort to prepare yourself. And there's other aspects beyond that include like preparation and stuff, but that's again beyond the scope of what we're getting into, right? You can get really into the weeds of that. So sticking to the simple shoot, move, communicate, and those surrounding things, and keeping it at that in itself is a lot of work to be done there, and it's essential if you want to be effective. So that's kind of the goal, is developing these skills, and in this case of with Craig and Jason is introducing these skills. They don't have any military experience, and so part of that is teaching that. Another thing to have consider is with the physical fitness is also having a mindset that embracing the suck, like being uncomfortable, being hot, being physically under duress. Those are things that you're going to have to be prepared for to be able to perform. It's not, like a video game where you just move the controller around and you don't feel any fatigue. In real life, when you run around with a bunch of equipment and got the stress and things going on, it's gonna gas you quick. And so having that mental preparation is going to help a lot. Having kind of these like skills and tactics is in the case of like a natural disaster, or if you have violent civil unrest. We had that a lot in 2020, especially if you live in and around a city. If you're in rural areas, you got more time before that comes out to you, but then you're dealing with all kinds of dreads of society. They're all over the country, and it's just different types. You might have more of like gangbanger types in a city, but out in the cut, you get to be dealing with like methods and out here you got cartel and whatnot. So being able to do anything like recover assets, reconnaissance, protect your assets, protection of homes or property, all the stuff fits in within this umbrella of what a Minuteman is prepared to do, right? Not everybody owns a gun, not everybody trains, and so you, as that protector, if you've chosen to make that choice, well, this is kind of the hard work you got to put behind it to make yourself a valid person. Otherwise, you're just putting on kit and you're just playing pretend. And so, be real in what you're willing to do and how much time you're really willing to put in. So we're going to teleport back to the computer, and I'm going to pull up a document and kind of show you what I created and kind of demonstrate ways you can put your ideas and things together with Google Docs and all this cool software. It's really easy to share information and compile it, or whatever. So let's do that. So all right, so this is like a document that I use, and what I do is I just copy it and edit it as I need it, right? So this is for September 16th LARP event, right? So Minuteman skill development, shoot, move, communicate. We talk about the main title of what this is, right? So again, this is what we're talking about. This is the whole idea of Minuteman training and how it applies to you as a Joe Schmuckatelli civilian, right? So again, individual skills, and then to be able to work in a team, because a team is more powerful than an individual. So I break it down, primary training objectives. Organize and plan what you want to do, so that way you're not spending time, chit-chatting and bullshitting and just not figuring out, what exactly you're going to do. Figure it out ahead of time. You can always adapt it, right, based on time frame, logistics, weather, whatever, right? Be flexible, but do have some kind of outline of what your training is going to be. So, we're going to start with planning and staging, prep intel, maps, routes, terrain. I've already pre-gathered the stuff, chatting, using Google Maps or US Topology or whatever, figuring out where we want to go. If we're not familiar with the area, or if it's a new area, we're able to navigate, and this is going to be on some quasi private property that we're going to be on. Navigation, right? Talk about digital and analog navigation. This is not going to be a land nav training, so we're not getting to the minutia of land nav, because land nav in itself is a deep subject. We're just going to be using digital devices, right? GPS, phone GPS, watch GPS, etc., etc. So communication, if we're running radios, that they all work and connect, right?
This can be just walkie-talkies all the way up to like really complex headsets and things like that, making sure all that works. Weapons and gear, right? And serviceable weapons and gear secured with buddy checks. What that means is your rifle is lubed, it is zeroed, you have witness marks, it's ready to go, it's ready to be used. Your gear is ready and prepared for that mission, right? And that planning and staging, you figure out what you're going to take or not take, right? Ideally, you've talked about this previously, but this would be the final time that you'd go over what you need, not bringing stuff you don't need, and bringing things that you do need or potentially will need. So you don't bring a bunch of extra stuff that you don't need. Like you're not going to be doing any bushcraft stuff. You don't need a bushcraft knife, for example. It's just extra weight. Buddy checks. What this means, right, is you check each other over. You're looking for sound, loose straps, anything that's about to unzip and fall out, right? This gets used to looking for your own shit, but sometimes you can't see stuff that's like on your back or whatever, right? So this is where the buddy check is. When you start losing shit out in the woods, man, you'll figure out real quick that you need to spend some time checking everything. We're gonna introduce movement to contact, right? Uh, Basic fire team buddy pair. It's gonna be 3 of us, so it's gonna be kind of like a little fire team. Learning how to do patrol movement in regards to military scouting. You know, this is not a like a standard like squad, you know, or platoon style. This is basically how to sneak around and stay within contact and range with each other, all like the little subsets of information, nonverbal and radio. As simple as that. You know, learning things like road crossings, patrolling in a formation, terrain patrol and formation, right? So there's 2 different ways to patrol just going through terrain. That terrain can be very, very mixed, right, depending on where you live. Road patrol, right, there's a kind of more specific way to do road patrol versus just kind of diddy bopping down the street, getting ready to be shot. So those are some of the basic stuff we'll be going over. Road crossing, what's a safe way to do that? Fire maneuver, right? So basic target assault and regress. We're incorporating communication, that's set and move communication, or using the weapons to talk to each other. This is going to be performance on demand, you know, marksmanship, reloading, malfunctions, stuff that Jason and I work on all the time, right? So now it's just, we're not thinking about that, we're just doing it while we are concentrating on communicating and advancing on the target. This is more difficult than it seems, and folks that don't have a lot of experience find that out pretty quickly. It's not like video games or the movies. Like that whole meme, like man thinks he's 4,000% more effective in a fist fight than he actually is, right? So it's kind of the reality check, but you know, this is going to be more of introducing failure points because this kind of work is not going to teach you anything. It's going to teach you where you fail, and then you base your remedial training on that. Bounding fire maneuver, you know, cover to cover, communication, shooting hard skills. When you have your new shooters do this kind of stuff, you really want to let them do it alone so you can watch them and make sure that they're safe and everything. When people start sucking dick and getting winded, getting fatigued, they start doing stupid shit. And if they don't have a lot of experience, you know, that weapon doesn't go back unsafe. That finger starts riding the trigger. They point the muzzle at the dirt, so when they fall, you know, stock jaw jacks them. So just think about those kinds of things, right? Scrambler, fire maneuver. Scrambler is simply this. It's a mixed distance determined by shooting positions and targets. So a scrambler is any combination of like distances, shooting positions, and targets, right? It's going to be done solo, buddy pair. You can do it for time. You can do it just for a demonstration of technique, right? So all this stuff can be very complicated and it's hard to do well. You have to put the time in outside of this kind of training to do it well. So, you know, that's the kind of thing to consider as well. That keep your training plan simple. You can always expand it or shrink it as needed. Topics, right? Like having terms, right? You might deal with prior military guys or guys who are nerds about this stuff, and they'll know like these terms, but you know, make sure you speak in the same language. Don't start spitting out acronyms and all this other shit, and the people you're training with have no idea what you're talking about, right? These are just real basic terms that I feel like are essential to this kind of discussion. mission critical equipment, right? So this is looking at, you know, we're doing less than an 8-hour op, right? This is simply for general reconnaissance observation. If you get into a firefight, you could fight your way out and get out, right? You know, if you were doing an assault or something, ideally you want to come in a vehicle, get closer, uh, come in hot and fast, what she said, have armor on, etc., etc. But this is kind of like a basic list of stuff, and there's tons of videos on how to put kit together, right? And then optional stuff. I would say Gators is really good in the summertime. You know, it depends. You know how far you're doing your training. If you're doing like an overnight thing where you guys are going to be taking breaks and you need to practice collecting water and stuff, sure, have the stuff. But if you're just walking around doing shoot move stuff, like, you don't need all this bullshit. You know, this is the basic overview. Simple, 1, 2, 3, right? So down at the bottom, I have GPS coordinates for everything, and that way you can plug and play into your GPS devices. So, guys, thanks for watching. The next segment, or next video in regards to this, will have us, you know, working on the training. I'm going to try and capture as much of the lecture out in the field as I can, and demos and cool B-roll stuff. So, until then, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for your time. If you like the content, you can subscribe, comment, give me your thoughts and opinions. I like to hear them, and see you in the next video.